You, at this table? Don't waste my time. The room erupted in uneasy whispers, his voice echoing with arrogance. She's just the woman who takes the bus, another scoffed, disbelief dripping from every word. But Maya didn't flinch. She placed the documents on the table, her calmness cutting deeper than any insult. The same men who mocked her were about to discover the truth. The millionaire who once laughed at her ride home never imagined she'd own the key to his future. This is the story of arrogance undone. Welcome, story lovers. From where are you watching? Hit the like button and drop your city name in the comments so we can see how far our story travels. It was the end of another long workday, the kind that left her feet sore and her clothes clinging to the dust of the city. Maya clutched her worn leather bag, waiting at the bus stop as the evening traffic roared around her. The crowd thinned quickly, and soon she stood almost alone, framed by the dull glow of the street lamp. For most, riding the bus was a forgettable part of life. For her it was a necessity, affordable, practical, and routine. Yet tonight, that simple choice was about to brand her with an invisible mark of judgment. A sleek black car rolled up near the stop. The tinted window slid down, and the man inside, polished in his expensive suit, locked eyes with her. His lips curled into a laugh, not one of humor, but one of dismissal, the kind that measured worth through wealth and appearances. In that brief smirk, Maya felt the sharp sting of mockery, though no words were spoken. She turned away, boarding the bus, as its brakes hissed against the pavement. The driver nodded, a silent kindness in a world that often withheld it. She found her usual seat near the back, gazing out at the city lights that glittered like promises just out of reach. No one on that bus knew she spent nights poring over books, studying finance, and quietly stacking her savings. No one saw the determination beneath her calm silence. The millionaire's laugh might have followed her into the evening, but it did not define her. He saw only a woman too poor for his world. What he could not see was the strength of her vision, the persistence carved into her every step. The bus pulled away, and with it began a journey that would one day circle back, reshaping not only her future, but his as well. The following days unfolded much the same: work, exhaustion, and that same crowded bus ride home. Yet beneath the repetition, Maya's world was quietly shifting. While others rushed to escape their jobs, she stayed late, observing, listening, and learning. She watched how decisions were made, how contracts were signed, and how investments were whispered about in closed rooms she was never invited into. Most people dismissed her as invisible, a quiet assistant who blended into the background. But invisibility had its advantage. It allowed her to see everything without being seen. At night, she returned to her small apartment, the walls lined with second-hand books. Finance, economics, business biographies, pages highlighted, notes scribbled in the margins. She lived frugally, foregoing luxuries and funneling every spare coin into savings. While her colleagues laughed at her bus life, she quietly studied the stock market, experimenting with small trades, gradually building her confidence. Meanwhile, the man in the sleek black car, Marcus Hale, lived in an entirely different rhythm. He was a rising millionaire, confident in his power, often spotted at galas and business dinners. His laughter, carefree, arrogant, followed him wherever he went. People admired him, but few noticed how reckless his decisions were becoming. He dismissed those beneath him as irrelevant, blind to the lessons life was preparing to deliver. The two crossed paths occasionally, he in tailored suits, she in her modest attire. He never remembered her, though she always remembered his smirk. Every time she climbed onto the bus, she recalled that look of dismissal, and it fueled her resolve. Success, she decided, would be her quiet answer. Opportunities rarely announced themselves loudly. One evening, Maya overheard a conversation between two executives discussing Marcus's company. whispers of financial strain, poor investments, and an upcoming deal that could either save or sink the business. She said nothing, tucked the knowledge away, and went home to research. The numbers didn't lie. Marcus's empire was wobbling. Maya doubled down on her studies. She attended free seminars, built connections online, and started investing strategically. Slowly, her savings grew into a substantial amount. She partnered with like-minded entrepreneurs, people who saw potential where others saw only limitations. Together, they built a fund focused on innovative startups, the kind of ventures that Marcus's outdated strategies had previously overlooked. Months turned into years. Maya still rode the bus, lived modestly, but her financial portfolio was no longer small. Behind her quiet life, she had become an investor, a silent force moving money with precision. Then came the day the markets shifted. Marcus's company, once praised, faced collapse. Investors panicked, clients fled, and his once flawless confidence cracked. Desperate for a solution, Marcus sought new partners, someone willing to inject capital and revive his brand. He never imagined that the answer would come from the woman he had once laughed at. Maya's fund had grown strong enough to step in. Her group was invited to the negotiation table. For the first time, Marcus saw her not as a passenger on a bus, but as a business leader whose decisions could determine his survival. The weight of irony was almost too heavy to ignore. What began as a laugh at a bus stop had spiraled into a lesson, far greater than he was prepared for. And for Maya, the moment of reckoning was only beginning. The boardroom was cold, a polished glass and steel setting meant to intimidate. Marcus sat at the head of the long table, his suit flawless, but his eyes restless. Papers spread before him told the story he refused to say aloud. His empire was slipping. The silence stretched as investors whispered nervously, waiting for a solution that never came. Then the doors opened. Maya walked in, calm, composed, dressed not in luxury, but in quiet elegance. The room shifted. Eyes followed her, some curious, some dismissive, until she took her seat opposite Marcus. For the first time, his confident mask faltered. He remembered her, vaguely, a bus stop, a laugh, a smirk. He hadn't thought of her since, but she had never forgotten. Her team laid out their proposal, with numbers crisp and a sound strategy. Their fund could save his company, but the conditions were firm: shared control, accountability, and new leadership. Every word cut into Marcus's pride. For years, he had dismissed people like her as insignificant, yet here she was, the key to his survival. The investors leaned forward, desperate for rescue. Marcus tried to interrupt, to reassert dominance, but his voice cracked under the weight of reality. Maya did not gloat. She presented the facts, her quiet authority stronger than arrogance could ever be. As she finished, the room erupted in questions and agreements. Marcus looked at her, the memory of his laughter at the bus stop, crashing into him with full force. The woman he once mocked now held his future in her hands, and for the first time in his life, Marcus Hale understood what it meant to be powerless. When the contracts were finally signed, the boardroom no longer belonged to Marcus. Control had shifted, and with it, the tone of every conversation. Investors who once deferred to his arrogance now looked to Maya, the woman who had arrived without fanfare but left as the company's savior. She spoke with clarity, mapping a vision not of excess, but of resilience and innovation. Her presence commanded respect, not through wealth flaunted, but through wisdom earned. For Marcus, the humiliation was bitter. He had built his identity on superiority, convinced that status and appearance defined worth. Yet the same woman he had laughed at for boarding a bus had become indispensable. That single smirk, once a symbol of his power, now echoed as a reminder of his blindness. In silence, he realized that arrogance had cost him far more than money. It had cost him dignity. For Maya, the victory was not about revenge. It was about proving, if only to herself, that resilience and discipline could defy expectation. She had been underestimated, ignored, and quietly judged, but she had turned those moments into fuel. Her success was a story larger than herself, a reflection of how often brilliance is overlooked because of race, class, or circumstance. Her journey became a lesson whispered across the company halls. Never measure someone by the surface of their struggle, because sometimes the person you dismiss today is the one who may hold your tomorrow. The bus stop, once a place of silent humiliation, was now a memory that glowed with triumph. And her story raised the question, how many futures are mocked into silence before they rise to redefine power?